at College and Career Ready Night is our Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources Pathway. Again, my name is Joni Gallagher. I'm the Math Science Division Head. We have a few panelists with us this evening, and I'm going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves in just a moment. So our focus tonight will be information you can find on our district website in our handbook, and I'll share that link in just a second. But the two spaces that you'll hear a lot about tonight have to do with food science, one of our areas of expertise and areas of student involvement, and plant and animal systems. Now, this can be found on our website, www.d214.org. If you go to the academic space and look at academic programs and pathways guidebook, we started very small 5 years ago, and one of our panelists, Ms. Eubanks, was one of the original founding curricular developers on this. We grew from a few students to hundreds of students in a very short period of time. So again, I'm hopeful that that link will take you directly to the handbook. But again, www.d214.org, and you go to the academics area to the handbook. So let me stop talking for a moment and have our panelists introduce yourselves, identifying your name, role, and the organization with which you are affiliated. Kirsten, you want to start for us?
Sure. So hi, everybody. My name is Kirsten Eubanks. I'm one of two teachers at Rolling Meadows High School, and I oversee more of the animal science side of the agriculture pathway.
Great. Thank you. Karina?
Hello, everyone. I'm Karina Perales. I'm the second teacher from Rolling Meadows High School. I'm in charge of the agricultural biology classes and food science.
Thank you, Karina. And Isai?
Hello, my name is Isai Brindis. I'm a senior here at Rolling Meadows High School, and the career path I'm going to is in natural conservation.
Oh, great. Again, thank you for joining us. And Meredith?
Hi, everyone. My name is Meredith Swanka. I am the Natural Resources Manager over at the Grove. It's a part of the Glenview Park District. I'm excited to hear that you're thinking about conservation work.
Yes.
I'm glad to be here tonight.
And yes, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. To start to elaborate a little bit more about this pathway, I'll stick with the teachers first, and we'll broaden out to the experiences of one of our students, and then where you might go with this in industry or a partner. So Ms. Eubanks and Ms. Perales, if you could share with us the specific courses that you teach and maybe elaborate on the area that you focus on, as Kirsten shared in her introduction. So Kirsten, you want to start with that?
Sure. So I teach a whole plethora of classes in the agriculture department. But this year, primarily, I'm focusing on the veterinary science classes. In the veterinary science classes, those classes offer students the opportunity to get hands-on opportunities to work with animals one-on-one. So students are learning in their Vet Science 1 classes how to do a physical exam on an animal. They learn all the body systems. They learn all of that kind of nitty-gritty stuff about an animal. For Vet Science 2, we actually learn kind of how do we help an animal when they come into the clinic and they are injured, or maybe they are sick, and we learn how to assess those types of things and actually how to fix some of those, like giving sutures, giving vaccinations, how to wrap a broken bone. And that leads into our vet assisting pathway class. And that class gives students an entire semester to job shadow at a vet clinic of their choosing. We actually have been working really well with quite a few partners to give students the opportunity to work with whatever their interests are in. So last year we had students working with more animals on the bird side or at a zoo, and we had some students at vet clinics and at animal shelters, depending on what their interests were. And so we were able to find those placements for students to get the really foundational knowledge before going into college. I also am in charge of the Sustainable Urban Agriculture class. That is a dual credit course through the College of DuPage. That is a semester-long class. And that class focuses on how are we going to use the up and coming new technology that we have in a effective way to feed the world with a growing population and limited amount of land. So those are the classes that I focus on teaching. Karina, do you want to go ahead and explain your classes?
Yep. So like I mentioned, I'm in charge of agricultural biology. The cool thing about that course is kind of the opening course to everything ag within our program. So freshmen primarily take biology. They have the choice between a regular biology class or agricultural biology. The difference with agricultural biology is that we're going to be focusing more on plant and animal systems rather than focusing on human systems. So we kind of touch on those same topics that veterinary science does on a much smaller scale. We also touch on looking at plant systems and how biology works with those two things. Right. So I also am in charge of food science. And in food science, we primarily focus on growing food. So growing food, the importance of growing food, and why we need to grow, even in our small scale in an urban setting. Right. So we have our greenhouse and our high tunnel, and those are the two locations that we use to grow food. In our high tunnel or in our greenhouse, we're going to grow pretty much everything like our little seeds and plugs. And then we grow bigger things outside in the high tunnel. With the greenhouse, it's a really neat hands-on experience where students are actually working the greenhouse and running it, growing everything. And then they are actually in charge of kind of taking care of everything, which is a really neat experience for them.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you both. And I heard the word sustainability in both of your descriptions. That's going to be something that every student at some point or another in the next couple of years is going to have experiences with. The 3 tiers of sustainability, we focus very much on that science tier, and the students who have had the chance to go through part of our ag career pathway talk about how beneficial that's been currently, as well as once they lead our guiding influences from Rolling Meadows High School. So Isai, would you like to share a little bit about your career pathway and some of the experiences you've had at Rolling Meadows and how you feel they're benefiting you?
Gladly. You know, from the very beginning as a freshman, I knew I wanted to be in biology and all that courses related. So what I did was, take the most biology courses with Miss Eubanks. And I just want to say that if you're going to be entering Rolling Meadows, that you should really take advantage on the courses we have, because not a lot of other districts offer the same courses as we have. And I just also want to say that when you're trying to find the career ways you want to be into, just try to get involved yourself with multiple counselors or with your teachers. Just try to get yourself more out there. And as in with me, I'm now experiencing a internship here in Prospect Heights in the Natural Resource Commission, where currently I'm now studying about plants and to focus on those native plant species that we have. Because in the end, we're talking about sustainability here, and with a lot of invasive species here, we just gotta try to sustain the biomes we have here in Illinois, and not just Illinois, but states that you want to go into, or as in you grow up. And I just want to say that, as in with the experience, you just have to grow.
Yeah. So can you share a little bit more about this internship you're experiencing? What's your hours or days like when you get to go over to, would you say it's Prospect Heights?
Yeah, Prospect Heights. So currently it's a 30-hour internship, sadly. And although I would love to be more with them, I know I could volunteer after the internship, and everyone could. Everyone's welcome. But just to add more, as in the daily tasks that I do, is that we go to the restorations that this commission has done in Prospect Heights, where the main focus they have is restoring prairies, which is a biome here in Illinois that is depleting, sadly, by either by lawns or in the industry. And it's really important to spread the message, as in having these native plants around. And we could even have it in our own lawns, which is one of the the statements we're trying to spread out within this internship.
Mhm.
An example that I want to give out is with milkweed. Although I mean, when I first entered the internship, I did not know what milkweed was, but I later found out that the milkweed is really crucial with the monarchs because that's what the monarchs only feed on, and it's a native plant here in Illinois, and you know, it's just about also with the community that I met with the other students here in the same district. One being from Wheeling and the both others being from Prospect. And within those schools, I realized that I was maybe a bit more blessed, within the courses we take here in Rolling Meadows, as in with them. But I'm just glad that I was able to, share a community and hopefully I'm able to spread a message, not just with my fellow classmates, but, locally
Mhm.
with some of my neighbors and all that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I
Yeah.
think that may lead beautifully into Meredith. Would you like to share a little bit more about what it is that you do, where you work, and how you got into this field?
Sure. Well, first of all, I want to echo what Isa said that, what you guys are doing with the classes that you're offering, that's really unique. Not a lot of schools offer that. And, food is incredibly important. It's what we put in our bodies. So the fact that you guys are actually teaching students about that is fantastic. So thank you both. I think that's fantastic. So yeah, I actually have a slight background in sustainable agriculture as well, and it was kind of a toss-up between conservation work and sustainable ag. But I really liked the wildness more, which is what drew me. I actually started working at the Grove in 2008. I started there as a program staff. So we're a National Historic Landmark and an Illinois Nature Preserve site. So I started just teaching kids about the history, and somehow I got tied in with the restoration department. And so I would just work one day a week with them, and I just really fell in love with being active, using my body, being outside, and it all kind of stemmed from there. So I was pretty young. I didn't go to college until I was a little bit older, but I finished my degree at Southern Illinois University. I went to school for plant and soil science. And then from there, I worked for the Chicago Botanic Gardens. I worked for some contracting companies. I worked for Lake Forest Open Lands. So I was kind of around the conservation world for a little bit, mixed in with some farming jobs, which I also loved. But then I kept my foot in the door at the Grove, and I was like, hire me for full-time restoration. And eventually in 2016, they did. And so I'm there to stay. But it's a lot of fun. It's every day something new. Yes, we do it is kind of tedious tasks sometimes, but when you're out in nature, you can find all kinds of things. You're always finding new insects. You're seeing new reptiles that maybe you haven't seen before, or engaging in a behavior that you haven't seen before. You're finding new plants. It's really rewarding to see that the work that you put in and seeing the results that you get back. So it's a pretty good draw if you like, to see the benefits of your work that are meaningful. Yeah, so on a day-to-day basis, we're trying to promote diversity. And so we do that by planting, we collect native seed, we spread that native seed. We do prescribed burns. November's coming up, so fall is one of our burn seasons. It's always, people really love those. If you're not in charge, you love them. And then clearing season's coming up in winter, so we cut down the buckthorn, we make brush piles, we light them on fire. It's a grand old time every day.
Right.
Summers are hot, but other than that, I can't complain too much.
For sure. And I do remember being very lucky to be able to visit Chicago Botanic Gardens as a little kid. My grandparents were in the area, and I was always fascinated by it, wondering, how can I work here? Of course, I lived in Central Illinois, so that wasn't an option. Can you tell me some of the things that you maybe would give a high school student in terms of advice as to what to do to continue to go into this path?
Sure.
Other
I would
classes?
Yeah. Yeah, take some classes. But I would also say get out there in the field. You know, if you can find volunteer opportunities, take them. But also just go out on your own. Books, everyone's on their phone these days, and there are some really good plant apps, but I used to just look through a wildflower book and then I'd go walk in the woods and I would see the plants that I saw in my books and I'd be like, oh, I know what that is. But getting familiar with the local flora is very important because that's what you're working with. And if you don't know what you're looking at, it's going to make it a little more tough. So just getting that foundational knowledge is really, really good. If somebody comes in and they want to like work with me and they already know like a bunch of plants, I'm like, oh yeah, good. Because a lot of people come in without that knowledge and you're starting at square one. If you have a specialized interest in anything in nature, I have one guy on staff who's incredibly fantastic with insects. And he has been doing insect surveys for me, and it's really vital information because we're conserving these plants for the plants or the animals essentially. So to know what animals we have and how the plants that we have and are manipulating are, what those impacts are is really important. So if you have like a little niche that you want to get into, and it can be, you might not think it's important, but all those nature is just one big web and it's all important, it's all connected, and we're figuring out how. But if you have a little niche, something that you're really interested, dive deep into it.
Yeah. And like you said, seeing how those things, even though it might appear individually to be just something like a hobby, diving more deeply into it, you'll recognize the deep connections from an innovative and wondering space that could actually be a new job that doesn't exist now. And
Yeah.
that's going to be something that turns over more and more, particularly in a sustainability type scenario like our ag and food science pathway is. I'm going to shift back to the teachers for a minute to maybe get some personal and educational experiences that the two of you have had that maybe were part of your story as to how you got to this spot, teaching a brand new innovative pathway. So I don't know, maybe growing up or some personal experiences you had, and then your education. Anything you'd like to share?
Sure. So I'll go first. So I grew up in Elburn, so a small little kind of farm town. But so that town I grew up in, I grew up on a farm. It was a horse lesson boarding facility. We never hired anybody to help out, so it was my family and I maintaining the whole thing. So I learned very quickly at a very young age how to maintain large animals, and a lot of other agricultural practices. In addition to that, I also helped my mom with a lot of gardening, and I did have a family member who owns several acres of land that they farm. So I have a lot of connections to agriculture. And so I was very passionate about it because even though I was in a rural area, my high school was not a rural high school by any means. The closest we got to was a horticulture class. So I was very passionate about the fact that there was all of these really phenomenal things that I was doing. And all of my friends wanted to learn more about it, and there was no opportunities to learn about it in school. So I wanted to bring it to more suburban programs. That's kind of my whole dream with that. I went to the University of Illinois. I graduated there with a degree in agricultural sciences education with an endorsement in biology. And now I am currently working on a master's degree in conservation biology. So that's kind of a lot of my background. And then I also teach a class at the College of DuPage on hydroponics and aquaponics. So I have a large focus on sustainability and conservation with my background, and then a lot of focus on animal science and vet science as well.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. I'll go next. So kind of different than Kirsten. So I actually grew up in Wakanda, Illinois. So in Wakanda, it's very like urban setting meets rural setting almost. It's funny if you drive down one of the roads, you're surrounded by cornfields and then you drive up to the highway again. So it's a very interesting place to be from. But we did not have any agriculture courses at all at my high school. So kind of the same thing as Kirsten was saying. To be honest, like I didn't even think that agriculture even existed. Like I didn't know the idea of agriculture up until when it was time to go to college. So at that time, I was like, I don't want to go into business. Like everyone I know is going into business. I don't really know what I'm interested in. And then one day my mom just said, why don't you go into agriculture? And moms are always right, right? So I listened to my mom. Come to find out, my grandma's actually a dairy farmer in Mexico, and she did that her whole life. Up to this day, she cannot stand being in the United States because she's not with her cows. So she is a dairy farmer through and through. So that's my personal tie to agriculture. I ended up going to Iowa State University. I graduated with my degree in agriculture education and endorsement in biology. And through that experience, you really learn how important agriculture is, and not just how important it is, but how it's always around you. You walk into a grocery store, it's there. You walk outside on your lawn, it's right there. It's everywhere. So that's the one thing I really love about it. And just like Kirsten, that passion made me want to bring it to more of a urban, suburban setting. So they're also exposed to that idea and know that there are careers in agriculture, that they are just as important as those business careers or those engineering careers.
Yes, yes, and maybe sometimes more so because it's sustainability. So thank you both for sharing. I much older, and I too went to a very small town high school in central Illinois and didn't have any of these types of classes available. It was the very traditional math, science, reading, writing, arithmetic type of scenario. I felt very lucky that we did have land and we as a family needed to have a garden, and we used that. A lot of that was where our meals came from. But when I went to the University of Illinois, the only thing I had to reflect upon were the classes that I had in high school. And none of them were these. I thought gardening was just this separate thing that happened. Farming was this separate thing that happened outside of academics. So even though I had the moral plots, these famous, the famous plots at the University of Illinois that I found fascinating, I went into the physical sciences. But I learn a lot from both of these teachers regularly and the students who end up going through these programs, which I think is wonderful. Is there anything else that Isaiah, Kirsten, or Karina want to share at this point that I didn't ask about that you think might be something we should add? And then I'm going to go back to Meredith from there.
I would, Isaiah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, actually, okay, thanks. I guess the only thing I would just want to add on is that if you're going to be a student and if you're really passionate about this, as they said, you got to go explore. But I understand that maybe exploring by yourself is not always the option. So always go to your teacher or someone that you could trust on, and just throw yourself in the environment you want to be into and study. That's all I would just want to add on.
Thank you. That's great.
What I wanted to add, in our classes, we might not get so specific on certain topics, but outside of class, we actually run FFA, our student organization. And within FFA, there's so many different events that cover so many different agricultural topics. So if we don't get something to like in class, always come speak to one of us. There's always something in FFA that we need people for or are interested in trying. So that's always an opportunity as well.
So Karina, I'm glad you mentioned that the outside of classes experiences are a big part of what the two of you do as well. And you mentioned FFA. Kirsten, do you want to speak to MAST?
Sure. Yeah. So we do have FFA, and we do have MAST as well, which is the therapy dog organization that we have. With MAST, that is where students and staff members are learning to train and handle therapy dogs. So some dogs are student and staff dogs. Some dogs are some of the trainers' dogs that we work with, but all of these dogs are being trained to be therapy dogs, to be able to work within the school, within the community, and then as well we've worked in hospitals and other areas as well. So our therapy dog program is also run within the agriculture program. And that is a very successful program that students and community members have grown to really love and be excited about when they see.
And benefited from in good times and not so good times. Yep. Meredith, anything else that you can think of that you'd like to add? And I have a question. Are you at the place where Big Al is at? This 100-year-old?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I just heard about this at a family gathering on Saturday. And I was like, what? In Glenview?
Yeah, if you haven't been there, come check it out. It's it's a really fun place. Yeah, we have the interpretive center. We have a lot of different animals, and Big Al is one of our superstars. Everyone loves him. He's so sweet. But anything else I'd like to add is, I just really want to, I'm really glad for the people who came in today, because this is, it's a field that people don't really think about, but the importance of it is so vital. To just, we're on this planet and the planet is finite, and we have to find ways to work with it sustainably and to be able to utilize its resources in a responsible way. And, through sustainable agriculture, through conservation work, these are only two areas, with working with the earth that can really lead to some positive changes. So really, if you're thinking about this field, I really encourage it because it is so unique. You're not going to be sitting behind a desk, typing away or, going into meetings all the time. You're really going to be out there seeing real life, whether you're in the field on a farm or you're in the field in the woods, so get outside. It's good for you.
No,
That's all I want to say.
I agree. Thank you so much. And I will say a book that talks about all of this that my daughter gave me 2 years ago that I learned a great deal from about this vital area to consider, discusses a way to think and be, not just about it from an academic space, but Braiding Sweetgrass. It was a book that I absolutely adore and recommend to anybody who hasn't had a chance to read. So let me open it up to our couple participants. Are there any questions out there that we can answer that our panelists haven't had a chance to discuss? Okay. Well, I'm going to put my email in the chat, and you can certainly send any questions that way. And if I can't answer them from my positionality, I would be happy to reach out to these experts as well as others to answer them for you and to get you in touch with the right people. So again, thank you so much to our panelists for taking your evening out to talk about something that you clearly are passionate about and spending your life and your future years attending to. And we're excited for how we might grow this program even more. So thank you all. Again, if you have any other questions, send me an email. But take care. Have a nice night.